perfect plot, a recovered archive, the Pazzi conspiracy. A dark and mysterious page in the history of Florence. But what secrets lie behind this heinous crime? How was Giuliano de' Medici murdered, and what kind of weapon was used?
The dynamics probably all remain a mystery in part, an enigma which historians may be able to solve.
It's impossible to say if there are still mysteries surrounding Giuliano's death.
Florence, Sunday, 26th of April, 1478. Florence Cathedral. The city of Florence gathers to attend Holy Mass at the cathedral. For some time, several anti-Medici factions gathered around the figure of Pope Sixtus IV were plotting a conspiracy against the Medici family. Among them, the Pazzi. But nobody could have imagined what would happen that day, remembered as the bloodiest day of the Florentine Renaissance.
The Pope, in particular, sought to convey the hostility of the anti-Medici factions that surrounded him. The group of people who did not like the Medici family for various reasons was actually quite large. It included the Salviati, the Pazzi, the Borromei.
Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano had to be eliminated. On that bloody Sunday, the conspirators carried out their intentions. Lorenzo was able to escape to the sacristy and saved himself. Giuliano, on the other hand, died. Studies and research conducted by Professor Donatella Lippi made it possible for documents to be retrieved from the Jenner archive. The doctor and anthropologist who, in 1947, exhumed and studied the remains of Giuliano and Lorenzo. After 500 years, the opportunity to return to the scene of the crime has arisen. An investigation on behalf of the victim, a forensic investigation to provide answers to the many mysteries that still lie behind the Pazzi conspiracy.
Having recovered Jenner's archive, I came into possession of radiographic and photographic material from the time, meaning all of the first-hand source material which documented Giuliano's wounds. These things are usually reconstructed by Poliziano, by reporters, by these contemporary descriptions.
But how did the dynamics of the crime transpire? What weapon was used to commit the crime? And how did the events unfold? A lot of information was deciphered using the radiogram from Jenner's archive.
A radiogram projects the entire volume of the skull onto a single plane, so that we are able to see both sides of the skull. In terms of cause of death, anthropologically, we were able to identify a number of injuries on the left side of the frontal bone and a more complex fracture on the right side. Considering how medicine was at the time, was surviving this type of damage virtually impossible?
Given the severity and the depth of the injuries, there's another enigma that must be solved: the murder weapon. Certainly a heavy weapon, a battle axe. But this seems impossible.
Però anche qui c'è un mistero.
However, there is a mystery here too. How is it possible that an axe was used when this weapon was also forbidden on the battlefield by the statutes of the time, let alone within a conspiracy which took place in front of an audience, a crowd gathered for a religious service in the city of Florence's biggest church?
Having been able to access a cast of Giuliano's skull and compare it with old resources, such as the writings of Poliziano and Strinati, eyewitnesses of the murder, it was thought that the weapon was a gladiolus, a small dagger.
Qui c'è una lesione principale.
There is a primary injury here.
Questa è il margine dove arriva.
This is the margin where the blade arrived. It probably entered here, and this part splintered. It was certainly a heavy weapon, but if you look at the cut, it was also a sharp weapon. If it was a hatchet, it would be difficult to imagine a blow like this. Not impossible, but difficult. So, if we imagine a single weapon was used, we have to think of a blade that is both heavy and sharp at the same time. Essentially, the first blow arrives, which is a puncture wound and cut on the shoulder blade. At this point, Giuliano runs away. He is hit on the leg, he falls, and then he takes a blow to the head. At this time, they hit him on the head relentlessly, and I believe that at this point, he defended himself.
Francesco D'Antonio from the Pazzi family returns to the victim and hits him another 7 times. Giuliano de' Medici's fate is sealed.
Probabilmente
The dynamics probably all remain a mystery in part, an enigma which historians may be able to solve.
It's impossible to say if there are still mysteries surrounding Giuliano's death. It's true that historical documentation always reserves some surprises.
Much has been said, much has been analyzed, but we believe that certain truths of this crime that marked the history of Renaissance Florence will remain forever hidden.